Hey, we are live. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Please take a moment, as always, to hit the like and subscribe button. Today, I want to talk about a couple different things. First of all, I did mention before that I think we as Freemasons should be paying attention to, as much as possible, the relief efforts and protections being put in place by the government of Canada to the current trade war and trade escalations between Canada and the United States, the tariffs, which will result in increased prices, etc., etc. I thought that's important to discuss because many of our Masonic brethren may be affected by that. And as much as possible, I think we have a responsibility to try and deal with that as best we can and try to know what resources are available. So if a Masonic brother is struggling, we can assist him and let him know the resources that might be available. So I do want to talk about that and let you guys know what the relief efforts are as reported by the news. Hold on just one second. Scruffy, I remember Scruffy. I remember the name. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. As reported through the Globe and Mail, as reported through Canada.ca, we're going to talk about some of those relief efforts. There's also local provincial relief efforts. Ontario Newsroom has some reports which I want to talk about. And then I want to talk about memory, which I think is also incredibly important. If you know about Freemasonry, you know that memory is an incredibly important thing for Freemasons and within Freemasonry. It is how we prove our ritual and our ceremonies through memorization of ritual, as well as the performance of ritual and ceremony for officers, masters, whomever it might be, is expected to be done by memory. So I wanted to talk about what memory is, how to define it, what it is, how to strengthen it. We're going to rely primarily on Queensland Institute for the Brain. Queensland University. Let me just pull up the info. The Queensland Brain Institute. Memory through the Queensland Brain Institute. They got a great section on their website, brain/basics-memory, starting with what is memory and then going through the ways that people remember things, what it looks like in the brain. And it has some fascinating insights to Freemasonry, for Freemasonry, I should say. But all that is coming up shortly. For now, please hit like, please hit subscribe. And any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, let me know. The first 60 minutes, I just hang out, talk about anything. I also posted a short on YouTube talking about the history of, and shared to my socials, talking about the work that the Masonic Medical Research Institute did as it relates to cardiac defibrillators. If you've ever seen a cardiac defibrillator before, you'll know it's pretty incredible what they do, how they work, the lives they've saved. And there is a connection to Freemasonry. The Masonic Medical Research Institute was responsible for much of the study and research that went into not just the creation of defibrillators, but their effectiveness and usefulness. Hello, Tommy. How's it going? TJ, I used to work out a lot more than I do now. I need to get back into it and start doing more stuff. Start doing way more exercises. I've gotten kind of lazy lately. I want to also get in shape because I still don't know what's happening with my possible kidney donation. So I want to be healthy. I want to be as healthy as I can be if that happens. Mopor, that's always good advice. Plus, I need some drinking water is incredibly important as well. Also, on a side note, very sorry to hear the passing of Tim Curry. I think most people my age, I was born in 83, have fond memories of being scared to death watching It on TV. Tim Curry was a great Pennywise. Thank you, Black Gate. I appreciate that. I do not. I mean, I'm glad he's still alive. I would not want to see spending 62 years in an iron lung, that's for sure. So get yourself vaccinated for measles. Get your kids vaccinated for measles. It's the right thing to do. It's the Masonic thing to do. Um, I mean, as a general rule, no. I'm sure there is somewhere because there's millions of Masonic. Technically, the lodges, um, the lodges is the group of people. It's the buildings called a Masonic Temple, Masonic Hall, Masonic Conference Center where they meet. Um, but yeah, I'm not aware of any Masonic buildings that have gyms, but it wouldn't shock me if some did. And I think it'd be really, really cool, personally, if they did, to be honest. One of the things we're going to talk about when it comes to memory is the necessity of health as a way to maintain good memory, exercise, physical effort. So if we want our Masons to be good at memorization, a big part of it would be making sure that we are encouraging healthy habits by having gyms. Nacho, I don't know what you mean. I mean, if you want to share something with the Masonic Lodge, you would need to be a member. You could write them a letter. But I don't know what you mean by occultic characters. I mean, I don't believe in the occult. Hello, Mr. Dane. So I'm not really sure what you mean. Um, no, I don't disagree. Again, I've talked a lot on this stream about how we as Freemasons can and should encourage healthy living and being healthy amongst our members. Having a gym in our buildings would be one way to do so, that's for sure. Please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. We're going to give it some time, wait to see who joins. Don't forget, I'll be on my other channel tonight at 8 p.m. YouTube.com/@CameronAdamson. And we're going to be watching another scary movie. So, I'm not one who believes in spiritualism or is spiritual. I don't really believe in spiritual beings, Nacho. I'm not going to suggest that there are Masons who do, but I think you're misunderstanding what Freemasonry is. It's a club. We're not really out there fighting spiritual beings, for the record. You need to be really careful about not understanding what Freemasonry is versus what it isn't. It's not a spiritual entity. Some people may find spiritual solace in Freemasonry in the way others find solace in, say, music or sports. But it's not spiritual per se. And TJ, I don't disagree. I don't know who. Oh, nice try, Knack. You almost got me. Well, I mean, if you're dealing with spiritual challenges, I think your best bet is either, well, first, always just friends. So friends and family are usually good support. You might want to look at professional assistance like a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or talk to a spiritual professional like a priest or a rabbi, whatever your faith may be. Wealth strategy, we're going to be talking about relief efforts for Canadians during this current trade war, and then we're going to be talking about memory as well. So I did get my jab. Spartacus, freedomist, that second part of your name, you want to be careful with that. Clearly, you are not familiar with Janis Joplin. And I may have to close my window because it sounds like there's some construction happening outside, which is a pain. No worries, Nacho. Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to have to go and close my window, which is always annoying, but I'll be back in a moment. think they would call me in advance, and tell me they were planning construction so I could deal with it. You are welcome, Nacho. Um, so yeah, Spartacus, take a moment to familiarize yourself with the Janis Joplin / Chris Christopherson catalog. Might be a good idea. Whoa, Gooey, you need to calm down as well. He's not, you need to relax a lot, Gooey. You're getting a bit much, so just calm down. I'll deal with it. You need to relax. And everybody joining us, welcome. Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, as always, hit like, hit subscribe. There you go. Very sad. Dolly Parton is no longer with us. I wasn't a huge fan or anything. But, I was sad she passed away, obviously. I know she had a lot of friends, a lot of family. Well, I mean, going to a doctor isn't going to the feds, right? And doctors are designed to sit and listen. I mean, not designed, that's the wrong way to put it, but that's kind of their job. So long as you find a good doctor who is actually willing to spend some time with you, that's a really good thing. So, there's that, of course. Priests, rabbis, spiritual leaders, the same for them as well. So, yeah, I think you can look at doing that also. What about cleaning? Well, that depends on the lodge. I mean, that depends on the building more specifically, right? So some Masonic buildings and the lodges who own them will hire actual cleaning staff to make sure that, like we have that in our building. There's actual cleaning staff that will be in the lodge rooms and the buildings when we're not meeting to keep it clean. Sometimes the lodge membership is expected to just take care of it themselves and clean things themselves. Sometimes it's a combination of both. If you're looking to be hired on as a cleaner, TJ, or whatever it is, you have to talk to the local Masonic building and ask. They usually hire outside staff. Although in some cases, or outside contractors. Although in some cases, like Detroit, they have on-staff people. So, Spartacus, you need to calm down as well. You're going to get yourself in a timeout. Don't be talking to other people. Who do you recommend for spiritual leaders? I mean, I think it would depend on what your faith is. If you are Christian, then I recommend finding a local, church, priest. If you are Muslim, I would say look for a local mosque. Now, what I would say is if you don't really follow a particular faith, however you are most familiar with Christianity, then I would say start with Christianity might be your best approach to take. And I would also not forget to consider professional medical help as well. Psychiatrists, doctors, that's not talking to the feds. There's all sorts of rules about what they can and can't share and patient confidentiality. But it sounds like you maybe need some mental health supports as well. And then obviously there's crisis lines and 24-hour crisis numbers to call. 988 if you're thinking of hurting yourself, obviously. I always want to throw that out there for people. Well, I think the Book of Enoch, I don't believe it is part of the Bible officially, but I believe it is of the Christian tradition. So I would say start there. Start with the Christian faith and speak to a leader there. And also, of course, medical professionals as well. Well, yeah, I know she was one of many. I like country music. I like more modern country music. But I think I heard that story that she was one of 12 children or something like that. She definitely grew up very poor. A lot of kids in kind of the backwoods of Tennessee. Or not the backwoods, but small town Tennessee. And she made, she turned herself into an icon. Also did a ton of charitable work. So to her credit. Greetings, your waif. Freemasonry is not treasonous, nor is it a secret society, so you're wrong on both accounts. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more times. I am a Canadian first. I'm a Freemason second. Um, okay, well, I was curious if you're asking. Some people ask on this channel about if they could get a job working as a custodian at Masonic Temple, as we got that question a few times. I mean, I've said this a million times. You can learn way more about Freemasonry by showing up to clean the lodge than you can by knowing your ceremonies and your rituals. Um, and so I always think newer Masons really should be focused on trying to clean up as well as much as they can. I don't know what a Freemadon is, but I assume you mean Freemasons are. I don't think I'm creepy, but I don't know. Nice, your waif. I'm glad you like the poutine. I don't think I'm creepy, but then again, what do I know? But I would argue I am not creepy. You can take that for whatever it's worth. You can find me wherever you want, but I still hope you like and subscribe. I agree. I love Canada. I'm grateful to be Canadian. Um, I've said it before, greatest country in the world, in part because we have the greatest neighbors in the world. I mean, again, spiritual leaders maybe start with the Christian faith and professional medical help. There's no shame in it. I've talked to therapists in the past. Many people have. They can be a really good source. And the nice thing about it is because they're kind of a little bit separated from you, like they don't know you, they can be more objective when considering your concerns and considering your problems, right? Which I think is a really good thing because you want that objective third party who can consider what you're saying again from an objective objective state, right? So, thank you, Karen. So Freemasons are not creepy, we are not deceiving, and we are not traitors. Um, I've done workouts in the past, in fairness. And like I said, I do want to get back into exercising. I have been a little bit more lazy than I should be about it. So I'm working on it. I'm hoping to get a little bit back into it more. I maybe post some more YouTube videos of me exercising because unfortunately, I definitely have not done as much as I would like as of late. So thank you for the hiding, Karen. I appreciate that. Um, as always, first 60 minutes, we're just hanging out, waiting to see who joins. So let's wait to see who finds us. And any thoughts you have on Freemasonry at this point, aside from our friend Spartacus, unless he wants to tell me why he thinks the way he thinks. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you are doing well. As always, hit that like and subscribe button. Mark your calendars for today at 8, and I have some other exciting things coming up. So pay attention to my social media for some announcements. I'm looking forward to letting you guys know about some really cool and some really fun things I have coming up. Well, Freemasons shouldn't push things onto others, right? Quote unquote. Um, right. We don't recruit. Hello, Karen. I do this for a living, Jay, so help me out. Jack, I've been a professional wrestler, or at least a professional wrestling referee. Are there sisters of Freemasons? I think you mean like Eastern Star. Like there are women involved in Freemasonry. Eastern Star, Order of Women Freemasons. Heck, in France, there's even co-masonry. So, yes. I don't know what any of that means, Jack. I have never used hair oil in my life. Um, so I'm just happy to be here right now. And by the way, according to a post I just saw by Robert Reich, 2 people have died from measles. U.S. measles cases right now look like they're well over 2,200. Get yourself vaccinated. Get your kids vaccinated. It's important. I've never been to Israel, Joseph, but I want to go. It's on my list because I'm a member of a lodge in Tel Aviv, so I'd love to get there and visit Israel, particularly the lodge in Tel Aviv. I'd also like to visit lodges in Jordan. That's on my list as well. Um, I mean, I think we're very tame. Hello, Karen, once again. Oil is directly proportional to USA. I mean, oil, a lot of different countries both require oil and have oil. We're dealing with that right now, right? Trade wars and tariffs and oil production. If I recall correctly, right now in the States, oil is at $4.10 a gallon average. That's going to affect Freemasonry. I've talked about how and why a lot in the past, but it's going to affect it for sure. Yeah, it's a good idea. And I saw one a couple of times at a couple of appointments. It's like it's no different than anything else in life. It's no different than exercise, it's no different than eating well. It can be a beneficial tool to help you live a more healthy life. And if you're struggling, just go see somebody. Can't hurt, right? Especially, and I don't get me wrong, I do get that I'm lucky to live in Canada where we have OHIP and we have, psychiatrists are supported by our government, right? I understand in the States it's a little bit different. It's going to affect things like, do you have insurance? Do you have healthcare coverage? I get that that's an issue, but it's still worth looking into. And I think a lot of times there's different programs that can cover it, at least like a session. How do these other groups interact? When you say other groups, I'm not really sure what you mean. Like what other groups precisely? Freemasonry is its own organization, but you can be a Freemason and be an elk or moose. Or do you mean like the women's groups? So, like Eastern Star is part of the Masonic family. So, as a Freemason, I can join the Eastern Star. It's for both Master Masons and women to join. We have full visitation rights. I can attend their meetings. I can be a member. We support them in a variety of ways. Order of Women Freemasons, they're recognized by United Grand Lodge of England. They meet in Ontario in our buildings very often, or they're allowed to. I can't attend one of their meetings, but I can attend their special events and celebrations. Anything that is not tiled, right? And then co-masonry is not recognized in most jurisdictions. Rainbow, International Order for Rainbow for young girls and women is recognized. It is part of the Masonic family, and you are able to um, you are able to visit their events and their celebrations, and you can even wear your regalia if you so choose. Jack, people from Africa are perfectly fine. I don't know what that even means. We're going to keep hanging out, wait to see who joins. As always, the first 60 minutes, just hang out, no particular talking points. The second 60 minutes, we do have specific talking points. I'm going to talk about relief efforts for Canadians from the federal and provincial government. I think it's important that we as Freemasons advertise this as much as we can, and also memory, what it is, how it works. That's going to be really important, actually, because to be a Freemason, you need to have a good memory or at least practice your memory work. Um, no homemade solutions, Jack. Drink lots of water and go see a doctor. Keep yourself hydrated, drink water. That seems to be the best advice I can give you. Um, I do not think the earth is an energy farm. I think the earth is the earth. I mean, the earth produces energy. Well, I mean, I don't even know how much energy the earth produces. The sun produces the most energy in the universe, and in our solar system, I should say, and helps us, sends it to us. I suppose the earth produces energy through wind power, wind power, hydropower, geothermal, nuclear, whatever it might be. Um, yes, some FL man, some Florida man. I am Matt Damon. I've started a new life named Cameron Adamson. How's it going? Please like and subscribe. I hope you're doing well. Marco, I'm doing well as well. Many charitable groups are very close to Freemasons. Many charitable groups have received a lot of charitable assistance because of and thanks to Freemasons. I post about that a fair bit on my channel or on my social media accounts, particularly through my Facebook, because the Masonic Charities Foundations or Masonic Charitable Foundation has done a ton of pretty incredible work in that area. I believe in free will just because I don't know how to imagine a world without free will. I don't know what that would look like. You have $1? I'm asking people for $1 or $2 or $3. So please consider doing a super chat, sending a gift, Patreon, all that good jazz. It'd be incredibly helpful and help me turn my passion into profession or maintain my passion into a profession. For the time being, we're going to wait to see who joins. As always, please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. I just discovered it is International Dog Day. I actually did a video a few years ago about a service animal that was part of the Masonic, part of a Masonic lodge. He, attended lodge with his owner, with the person to whom he was serving, and he actually got installed along with that person in the different offices. No, Joseph, you don't need to make a certain amount of mums or money to be a Freemason. Having said that, there are annual dues. So if you're homeless, if you're struggling financially, joining Freemasonry at that time may not be the best idea for you, simply because your focus is going to want to be on getting yourself in a good financial situation first and foremost. But Freemasonry judges the internal and not the external. That means we don't care about how much money you have. We care about, are you a good person and honorable. I have got all of the jabs. I don't know how many. I mean, so I got it when it first came out. I got the 2 jabs. And then I've got boosters, I believe, every year. I think I may have missed a couple here and there. But as a general rule, I got the boosters every year. I mean, on top of that, I also got the flu shot. I also got the hepatitis A and B vaccines. I got the yellow fever vaccine, and I got tetanus shot. So, because I travel a lot, I'm considering another trip in September. I don't know for sure, but I travel a fair bit, and yeah, I want to be well vaccinated. Not just for my safety, but for those around me. I feel like I'm probably healthy enough. I could deal with most whatever, but I want to make sure I'm not passing it on to others. The earth is not flat. The earth is round. Everybody knows the earth is round, except for Spartacus. Well, it's a sphere. Let me put it that way. It's a globe. I mean, the problem with saying we don't have free will is how do you test that as a theory, right? How do you know? Like, there's no way to adequately test this idea. I can't stop acting as though I have free will, if that makes sense. Well, I mean, Nacho, I hopefully you're talking to Spartacus, because obviously I don't believe the earth is flat. I believe the earth is round. The most obvious reason is I see it every day when I look out my window. I have a lake or a river next to my window. It's a beautiful view. When ships pass over the horizon, first their bottom disappears and then the top disappears. The reason that happens is because it's going over the curve of the it's going over the curve of the horizon. So that's just one reason. They knew this all the way back in Pliny the Younger's days when he wrote, I think it was Pliny the Younger, when he wrote his natural history. Well, I'm still not going to take the risk, and even if it's a 1% chance of reduction, all the better. Um, Plus, and on top of that, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I get more sick than I would otherwise and need to use more medical resources. Every time I end up in the hospital and need hospital usage, I'm taking resources away from others who could use it instead. Right? If I go to the hospital because of a disease that I could have avoided, and the person next to me goes to the hospital because of something he could not avoid, an accident, a car accident, a genetic issue, I am taking resources away from him that otherwise he could be using. So it's the same reason I believe in exercise regularly and eating well. Not that I always succeed in any of that stuff, but I do try my best. Um, I mean, I can imagine that's the case, Dad. I can imagine people probably get really close to their seeing eye dogs. Again, the service animal that I'm going to post about on my channel tonight, he absolutely, you know, there's no doubt he was loved by his owner very much. Um, God was thinking around. I mean, if you believe in creationism, it definitely seems that spheres and circles seem to be the most common shape, spheres especially in the universe. Things tend to naturally form that way in a vacuum. Joe, hello from Iceland. Hello from Canada. How's it going? Um, I hope you're doing well. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're having a good day. Please take a moment, like I always say, hit like and subscribe and let me know how you're doing. Um, any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? Let me know. Again, the first 60 minutes we just hang out, but then I am going to start talking about first support for Canadians during this challenging time with the tariff and the trade war. And then we're going to talk about, amongst other things, memory, what it is, how it works, thanks primarily to the Queensland Brain Institute from the University of Queensland in Australia. I'm from Canada. I'd love to visit South Korea. There's really cool history of Freemasonry in South Korea, and I'd love to visit it. I think it'd be really incredible. Um, Thank you again for joining, Zender. Please hit like and subscribe. I'd be much obliged. I was actually in South Korea for like 5 minutes. Well, longer than that, on a layover when I was traveling to the Philippines, to Manila. So, Xander, what's the one thing you think I should visit if I was to visit, if I were to visit South Korea? Because, like I said, I think it'd be incredible to visit it. So, Nacho, I don't believe in remote viewing. I mean, I think you and I just have very different views, right? Like, I don't believe in in remote viewing or spiritualism or the supernatural. So I guess what I can say is I personally don't, I've never seen any evidence of remote viewing. Now, some friends of mine who are Freemasons believe in that stuff, but remote viewing is not part of any Masonic organizations I've been. You know, that's a separate thing that some people believe, some people like me don't believe in. Um, it's always good to learn about different things, but you need to be very skeptical about the supernatural. In my experience, it tends to lead people down not so good paths. Any famous, well, where in Canada, Zender? Because Canada's a big country, right? So, like, where in Canada do you want to visit? I think, Dad, if you're still there, I think you told me a story once. Maybe it wasn't you, but so my dad's from England, which is a lot smaller than Canada, and I think my grandma, his mom, was visiting and mentioned something about wanting to visit Alberta. And obviously, we lived in Winnipeg. So this idea of we'll just go and visit Alberta, it's like, um, that's like a 3-day drive to get there, which is very different than England, where, getting from one place to another takes you about, at most, 5 or 6 hours to get from one end of the country to the other. Um, so I need to know where you're going to be, Zender. But I would say, in terms of any famous tourist spots like Niagara Falls, Parliament in Ottawa is incredible. If you're in Winnipeg, the Forks. If you're here in Windsor, we have the riverfront, which is absolutely stunning. Um, Amherstburg has Fort Malden. There's so many incredible places to check out. To each their own is usually good advice, so long as you're not allowing some of these things to affect your day-to-day world, your health, or the way you interact with others, right? You need to be careful about that. Um, but no, I don't disagree either. So yeah, I think everybody has to find their own ways, but I'm very skeptical of the supernatural. I've become way more skeptical lately because I've had a few friends go into some really not healthy, not good paths because of belief in the supernatural and a refusal to kind of focus more on the rational world around them. It can be dangerous. I think that can often lead to conspiratorial thinking and this idea that you can you don't need independent verified evidence if you believe something to be true. There's lots of issues, so just be careful, is what I would advise. Be careful, be safe. That's the best you can do. Which state? I'm not from a state. I'm from a province. I was born in Manitoba, currently live in Windsor, Ontario. I've said it a million times. Canada is the greatest country in the world. What do your friends believe, if you're okay with sharing? Well, they don't have like a particular set of beliefs, right? They just, I mean, past lives or flat earth or the moon landing didn't happen, but they would always tie it into these spiritual ideas of like, I'm remote viewing or I'm meditating or, Mother Earth gives me information about whatever the truth I need to know. They don't really have a set of beliefs. Or, instead of going to the doctor to deal with medical issues that were obvious to everybody around them, they would wear crystals and, hug trees. And then they would end up in the hospital with really serious medical conditions that potentially could have been stopped earlier if they had trusted doctors and et cetera, things of that nature, right? And it was always tied into these weird, vague, spiritual kind of pronouncements about things like, well, Mother Earth talks to me, or I'm able to commune with the spirits, or my past lives are communicating with me. That stuff drove me crazy. I think one of the greatest strengths of Freemasonry is ultimately it. The ethics of it are in the ethics of rationality and science and geometry and liberal arts and learning things, and recognizing that the world does have a rational component to it, and being respectful of the civic authorities and civil authorities. So I think that is incredibly valuable. Nicholas, just an FYI to you, please hit like and subscribe. I mean, I appreciate that. Many Freemasons are Christians and would agree with it, but I'm not a Christian myself. But that's not to say I don't love seeing and sitting with my Masonic brothers who are Christians. I'm not sure what the filler means. I'm just saying, Nacho, just be careful. I know many Christian Freemasons, Nicholas. In fact, I've known some Freemasons who not only were Christians, but were leaders of their Masonic lodge. Or sorry, excuse me, leaders of their church. They were pastors. I would say the majority of Masons are Christians, but we do have Muslim and Jewish as well, obviously, and Hindu and Sikh. Nope, we do not worship the devil. I don't know where you're getting that from, Nicholas, but you're wrong. My assumption is you've read a lot of Albert Pike and misunderstood it. Friends, I don't know what that means, but I don't believe that. I believe, unless you're speaking incredibly metaphorically, which is possible, where, you're saying, like, if I'm feeling really sad, my soul is diseased or something, or if I'm a really cruel person, metaphorically that's possible, but literally, no. There are some diseases we can't cure, but that doesn't mean that they're beyond science. They have a scientific explanation. It's just not something we can currently resolve. Oh, Nicholas, the whole not far enough along yet. You don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't mean you can't be on the internet. One of the rules of, the world is if being wrong on the internet was illegal, no one would be on the internet. But you're still incorrect. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what it means to be far along. You don't know the hierarchy or the rankings. My assumption is you're one of those people who believes the 33rd degree is the highest in Freemasonry. My assumption is also you're one of those people who's, again, read the Albert Pike and looked at nonsense on social media and formed opinions on Freemasonry based on that. Well, I mean, Nacho, if you, I mean, I can understand being stressed out because I have a minuscule understanding as well of most things in life. The amount of knowledge that exists in the world versus our understanding is so minuscule. And that can be stressful and scary. My experience has usually been, for whatever it's worth, in those scenarios to first and foremost control the controllable, right? Yes, my knowledge of the world and the universe and even Freemasonry in some ways is minuscule, but I do know that I have several things in my life that I can control and that I am capable of controlling. And because of that, that gives me a sense of comfort and peace. I can't control every disease, but I can keep myself physically healthy and exercise. That is something I can control, and that will reduce the likelihood of getting sick. Not eliminate it, but at least reduce it. I can control how much water I drink. I can control how much sleep I get. I can control how much sleep I get. I can control, how much time I spend outside. So I think we need to keep in mind that there's a lot of things that we should remember that we do have within our control. And I think controlling the controllable helps reduce our stress. So no, I'm not leading people astray. I'm giving people my thoughts and opinions on Freemasonry. Well, then I don't know what you're basing your ideas on other than you're just full of nonsense. Masons are not a perversion of Christianity. Masonry occupies a civic space. Freemasonry occupies a civil space. These are occupying different spaces with different with different purposes. One is not meant to replace or create a perversion of the other. I'm not openly lying about what Freemasonry is. You can disagree with me if you so choose, and that's your right, even though you're wrong. But I'm telling you what my experiences of Freemasonry is or are. Having been a Mason for 20 years, having been lucky enough to travel around the world for Freemasonry, visited lodges in the Philippines, in Colombia, in Brazil, in all across the United States, in England and in Scotland, and having attended over, well over thousands of meetings, both ritual, administrative, and events around the world. So, um, we don't worship the God of the Bible. We don't worship any God. Freemasonry is not a religion. It's not set up to worship. We have Masons who worship the Bible or the God of the Bible. We have Masons who worship Allah. We have Masons who worship Hindu and Sikh. We have Masons who do not worship any particular religion or faith, right? We have Masons who, like me, my supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through science. We even have, I should say even, we have indigenous Masons who I understand worship Mother Earth as well. I mean, Nicholas doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, I'm sure he has experience with Freemasonry in that he saw nonsense online. Um, Nothing's wrong with ritual. I mean, sports teams have rituals. Clubs have rituals. Sitting down for dinner and saying grace is a ritual, but ritual is not exclusive to religion by any means. And anybody who thinks it is not paying attention to the history of the world as a whole. Um, well, rational understanding is what I worship. It's not what Masons worship because Mason's not a religion. So again, I sit next to Christian and Muslim and Jewish brothers, all the rest of it. Nicholas, I think you're going to have to. No, Masons cannot. I can't walk anywhere. I have no legs. But Masons cannot walk on water. Unless you want to argue. Now, it's interesting. And again, this is getting into religious discussions, which I'm not the expert on, but I do find it kind of fascinating. Um, um, so I had always been brought up to believe that Jesus was a carpenter, right? That was kind of based on my limited understanding of the Bible, that Jesus was a carpenter. However, I recently was doing some research, and apparently the word that was used to describe Jesus in the Bible was tekton, I believe, which actually didn't mean carpenter, it meant craftsman. And in fact, wood was not very plentiful in Judea at the time when Jesus was alive. Apparently, stone was a much more common building material. So it's likely that Jesus was actually more of a stonemason than a carpenter. Not a Freemason. Freemasonry did not exist for about 1500 years to 1600 years later, but a stonemason. So that's kind of cool. In a little bit, kind of an interesting side note. If, again, I'm not a biblical expert, but double check with your priests on that one. I don't know what the small hats are. No, because we're not performing miracles either. Well, compared to stone, wood was a much less common building material in the Middle East, in Judea, than stone was. Which I do think is right. I mean, I've never been there, but based on, like, there's Lebanon and the tall cedars of Lebanon, obviously, but that's in Lebanon. That's in a different spot than I think Judea was. So it's very likely, at the very least, based on my knowledge and based on my reading, that Jesus would have been able to work more commonly with stone than with wood as a building material. So that's an interesting kind of little point that I found fascinating when I was reading it. Stone, I've said it a million times. Stone, when you talk about the most important relationship humankind has ever had, some would say a relationship with animals, like dogs, especially. Some would say a relationship with the universe. I would say, to be perfectly honest, I think the most important relationship human beings have ever had is with stone. It was stone that allowed us to evolve from the plains of Africa. 3.3 million years ago, the very first stone tools. It's been on stone that we have preserved our religious knowledge, languages, information. It's with stone we've built great structures as well as permanent structures for year-round settlements to store food, for worship purposes. Even toys and idols back in the day were carved out of stone, right? So it's fascinating to see the relationship between human beings and stone, even before we were humans, dating back 3.3 million years ago. Stephen, many Christian Freemasons would agree with you. Keep in mind, I'm not Christian, but many would agree with you on that one. So Freemasons are not secretly controlling the world. And I actually did a podcast episode or a live stream a few months ago, I think May or June, going through the Epstein files to confirm that that based on the Epstein files, you can do a search. There's no evidence that any Freemasons ever visited the island or were, connected to Jeffrey Epstein in any way. Epstein was not a Freemason, nor was Maxwell, etc., etc. Well, Orn, you can't hit the like and subscribe button, even if you are stoned. The world is a bad place when even third world countries. I mean, the world is definitely struggling right now for a lot of different reasons, but civic institutions can hopefully make things better. So Freemasons are not political lunatics. Freemasonry is not political, and we're not interested in getting power. We're interested in trying to make our communities better through charitable efforts, metaphorical building, tolerance, kindness. Orn, that's awesome your grandpa was a Mason. My grandfather was a Freemason as well, as was my dad, both my grandfathers. And yes, trust the firefighters. If you have a fire, for heaven's sakes, trust the firefighters. Call them. They do not start fires. Orn, you need to calm down a lot. Stephen, I don't believe necessarily in, at least literally Satan, but I will say I think a lot of this world is under some very negative influences right now through social media, people making bad choices, conspiracy theories, stress, fear, economic concerns. I think it's up to all of us to, and that I'm including Freemasons, to exist and to promote more positivity in the world around us. Hello, 48 Hours Music. How's it going? Thank you for being here. I'll wave to you as well. Please like and subscribe. No, I'm not anybody's lord. Hello, Rake Sharma. How's it going? Vizzy, it's still good to see you, though, nonetheless. We're going to give this another 5 minutes, then I'll be 60 minutes in. Then we're going to start talking first and foremost about support for Canadian workers and businesses affected by U.S. tariffs, both national and provincial. Because I live in a city, but also, know Masons who are going to be affected by these tariffs. And if we do not find a way to, engage positively, or if we as Masons have responsibility to know what the government is doing to help people affected by these tariffs, by this trade war, and let them know. I think it's important that we do that as, good brothers and good community members. Thank you, Rake, for the like button. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody watching this is, as always, doing well. We're slowly getting up to 5,000 subs, one sub at a time. So I appreciate everybody being here. I'm hoping we can get to 5,000 this year. 48, I mean, that can happen. It happens to a lot of people. Maybe you'll find your way back at some point. Play, I know I look like Homer Simpson. Many people say I just look ugly in general, so. And don't forget 48 Hours Music. In the meantime, you can find and support me on this channel in a variety of ways. if you so choose. Mike, most people say I'm ugly, so I appreciate that. Please hit like and subscribe. We got some smiley faces. I mean, I suppose I would bring a lighter, fresh water, and a working satellite phone. Thank you, 48 playlist. I appreciate that. Many Freemasons are themselves Christians. So, um, you support Bill Gates? I mean, I don't know if I support or not support Bill Gates. I think he's done a lot of good for the world, and he's probably done a lot of not good for the world as well. Um, I definitely don't think that is the case for Trump. You guys need to calm down about that quite a bit. Um, can you join my Discord for this $50? No, we're not going to be doing that playlist. But if you want to join my Discord, I would appreciate it. I have a Discord. I never use it. I got to get better about being on my Discord, to be honest. So that is something I'm trying to be better at. My social media in general. I'm lucky and grateful to be monetized now on Facebook, but I'd like to be monetized across a few different platforms as well. So um, I'm working on it. Pack? Well, please hit like and subscribe. Calling me uncle makes me feel old. I assume you're saying like unk. Thank you for being here, though. I'm definitely not a time traveler. All right. 3 more minutes, then relief efforts for Canadians, workers, and businesses affected by the U.S. tariff. We're going to talk about that first. This is from the Department of Finance, Canada. Um, oh, that's a good thing to do, Dad. I mean, I'm going to be trying. Look, I love the States. I've said it a million times. I'm never going to like not visit the United States, but while I'm in Canada, I'm definitely going to be focused on as much as possible, trying to buy more Canadian products exclusively. And when I need to for lodges, do the same thing. Like if I need to bring food into a lodge, I'm going to try to look at purchasing more Canadian products for the lodge. Um, I think a lot of people are going to be saying "God bless maple syrup" at this point, Mike. So yeah, I would agree with that one. I hope that you are doing well also. I hope everybody watching this is having a good time. Well, yeah, I've said it before. I know people get kind of sick of me saying it. I am a Canadian first, and I'm an American. I'm a Canadian first, and I'm a Freemason second. I want to make sure I support my own country as it's going through these challenging times. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop, turn my back on the states or the people of the states, but that does mean I'm going to try when I can to purchase more local Canadian products. Um, I don't think so, Orrin. I think Canadians are a lot tougher than people think. Um, yes, I am a Freemason. I've been a Freemason for 20 years, just about. I joined in 2007. And it's crazy to think it's been that long. Um, So it's crazy to think it's been just about 20 years I've been a Freemason. Um, I'm definitely not a millionaire. If you think that Freemasons are millionaires, you don't understand Freemasonry. We're not making anybody rich or famous. That's not how it works. If you want to help me become a millionaire, you could give a super chat or a like or a comment, etc., etc. That stuff is helpful. I think we should rename Lake Ontario to, hold on just one second, let me pull it up. Let's see if I can find it now. Dun, dun, dun. Because I'm a big believer in preserving First Nations languages. Um, Freemasons are not rich. I mean, some Masons are rich, some Freemasons are poor. Most Freemasons are just middle class, whatever the country in which they live is. So I think we should rename Lake Ontario Lake Carignan, which translates to, or sorry, Canadario, which translates to Great Lake or Beautiful Water. In fact, I think what we should do is rename all of the Great Lakes with their First Nations original name. Erie would be Erie Lohan, which means long tail. Michigan would be Michigami, meaning long body of water. Ontario would be Canadario or Ontario, meaning Great Lake or beautiful, beautiful water. Huron would be Carignan, meaning fresh water or sea. And Superior would be Gitchigami, meaning Great Sea. I say change the names to the First Nations original names, in my humble opinion. So what do? We spend time with one another. We metaphorically build ourselves and build communities into better things as much as we can, which is very difficult, not an easy task. But ultimately, I mean, what do you do with your friends on a Friday night? It's a very formalized version of a guy's night out and a celebration of spending time with others. Okay, so as we all know, and I talked about this yesterday, presently Canada and the United States are engaged in a trade war with reciprocal tariffs being announced on both sides of the border. I believe in Canada, the tariffs are set to take effect September 8th, and I believe in the States, if I recall correctly, they're set to take effect in 2027 in January. Trade wars, tariffs, they increase prices and increase costs for both the business owners, or for both business owners and consumers. They also put a strain on workers. As a result, when it comes to the Canadian federal and provincial governments, they have announced relief efforts and support for Canadian workers and businesses affected by the US tariffs and the trade wars in general. We do not control the world government. My favorite is geometry, because of course it should be. It's not, Pac. I talked about this yesterday. Look, we in Freemasonry can't control a trade war, can't control how long it's going to last or what's going to happen. What we can do, control the controllable, is try to help any brethren that we know, any Masons, and any local businesses or workers that are affected in our communities, that are affected by the US tariffs and by the trade war more in general. We can try to help them and support them as best we can, financially, with benevolence, and by knowing the resources that are available at both the federal and provincial level. I've said this before. I think your secretaries of our lodges should have lists of local shelters, should have lists of brothers who have spare bedrooms in case another member needs a place to stay, should have lists of local food banks, crisis hotlines, and crisis numbers. Anything in that nature, I think we should have it. I also think we should have a list of temporary support measures. During COVID, for example, some secretaries kept information about like support measures for those who lost their jobs due to COVID. And I think this is another example of something we should know. So if a brother calls the Masonic Lodge and says, I'm really struggling, my costs to run my business has increased, by 100%, 120% due to these tariffs, the secretary can at least provide that brother with some basic information that he can use, or some basic supports. So the Canadian government released on, I believe it was 2 days ago, um, a, a news release from the Department of Finance Canada, support for Canadian workers and businesses affected by U.S. tariffs. The government is introducing a 7.5 billion package. It is cool pack. Please like and subscribe. Package of new and enhanced measures to protect Canadian workers and businesses, building on the nearly 25 billion in supports the government has implemented over the past 18 months. This targeted and proportionate package focuses on workers and businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, in sectors most affected by the new tariffs announced by the United States. Effective September 2026, which is when most Masonic lodges in Ontario return to meeting, the government will bolster the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, delivered by Canada's 7 regional development agencies, by 1.5 billion. This will help small and medium-sized enterprises respond to tariff pressures. The cap on non-repayable contributions will be increased from 1 to 3 million, which will now include support for demonstrated liquidity needs, in addition to existing support for pivot or capital investment plans. Liquidity support available will be up to 2 million. The government will introduce a second 500 million liquidity stream through the Business Development Bank of Canada's Pivot to Grow program to provide working capital to businesses facing cash flow shortfalls as a result of U.S. tariffs. This new liquidity stream will be added to provide working capital support for small and medium-sized businesses facing immediate cash flow pressures. This program will be available to companies directly impacted by tariffs, regardless of sector. Companies will be eligible for loans ranging from $250,000 to $5 million. Interest-only payments over 36 months. The application process will be simplified. Eligibility for BDC's direct tariff-related support programs will be expanded by lowering annual revenue requirements for applicants to $1 million. This includes Pivot to Grow as well as targeted support programs for the steel, aluminum, and forestry sectors. Canada Strong Diversification Fund, effective immediately. The government is creating the Canada Strong Diversification Fund, a new stream of the Strategic Response Fund. With additional $2 billion in funding, this fund will have expanded flexibility to support tariff-impacted companies with shovel-ready projects that support ongoing capital maintenance, including medium-sized firms. The new initiative will work closely with Regional Development Agency programming for project intake and triage. A fast-track, one-step project review and approval process will also be implemented to get projects moving faster. The government is introducing a new suite of 3.5 billion rapid response supports for workers and employers to help Canadians affected by tariffs, enabling workers, when needed, to extend by 1 year temporary employment insurance measures, to waive the 1 week waiting period, extending by 1 year the temporary EI measure that allows workers to receive EI benefits without first using up separation payments such as severance or vacation pay, extending by 8 months the temporary EI measures that provide an extra 20 weeks of EI regular benefits for long-tenured workers, introducing new temporary measures for 1 year so that workers who have voluntarily left jobs in recent months are no longer penalized when they want to access EI, as long as their most recent job loss is through no fault of their own. And it will also help them move quickly into new opportunities by increasing supports to match workers with jobs on jobbank.gc.ca. So again, if you are affected by these tariffs, if your employer has to lay you off, you lose your job due to, the employer having to cut back due to increased expenses, one place you can go to find a new job or to look for jobs that are available is jobbank.gc.ca. And there's increasing supports to match workers with jobs there. That's jobbank.gc.ca. And this will also assist employers in keeping the workforce through a difficult period. There's the new workforce retention and retaining program will be established, combining the existing EI work sharing program and worker retention grant into a single streamlined program, um, which will support employers and help provide coverage for training and administrative costs up to 1,000 per participant. And there's a large enterprise tariff loan facility. So the websites I want you guys to keep informed of: jobbank.gc.ca, Strategic Response Fund, which the website is, I'll leave in the description of this video. It's ised/isde.canada.ca, Strategic Response Fund, SRF. It is for businesses, amongst other things, right? The design was to help Canadian industries innovate, adapt, and compete in a changing global economy. If your business has been affected by the recently announced tariffs, information on the new Canada Strong Diversification Fund will be available through that website shortly. All of the information about how to check your eligibility is available on that website. I will leave the link in the description to this video. Let me go back for 1 second. There's also, again, the Pivot to Grow program through the Business Development Bank of Canada. If you own a business and you're being affected by the tariffs and you need to pivot to maybe use more, focus on more local consumers, local production, find a way to pivot away from being reliant on tariffs. The financing for trade support, get up to $5 million to help you counter the effects of tariffs on Canadian exports to the US by preserving cash flow, diversifying markets, or buying equipment. bdc.ca/en/financing/pivot-grow-loan. Again, this will be in the description to this video. Information available in both English and French. I know it seems like a lot of people will say, why should Freemasons care about this? There could be members of your Masonic lodge struggling to get through the current trade war. They may own businesses that are being hammered by these tariffs. They may be struggling to figure out how to support their employees. There may be workers in your lodge who are struggling because maybe they're looking at getting laid off, possibly. In all of these instances and in all of these cases, your focus as a lodge needs to be knowing the resources available to help and support them. I'm focusing on Canada because I'm Canadian Mason. I'm an Ontario Mason. I'm also live in Windsor, which may, we are a border town. We may be dealing with it more so than anybody else, but, or I'm, more so than many other places. But I think American Masons, especially in Michigan, especially in Maine, should look also at what programs are being provided. Ontario also released a news release dated August 24th, 2026 from the Office of the Premier. Ontario expanding protections for tariff-impacted workers. Province broadening eligibility for Protect Ontario financing program to support workers and businesses targeted by new U.S. tariffs. Today, the Ontario government announced that in response to the United States' newly enacted Section 338 tariffs on a range of Canadian imports, the province will be immediately broadening eligibility for the Protect Ontario financing program to protect impacted Ontario workers and businesses. Working in tandem with the province's existing tariff relief measures, the expansion will ensure businesses whose exports are impacted by this new 50% spike, as well as those businesses still subject to the existing Section 232 tariffs on steel, aluminum, copper, automotives, and equipped to withstand mounting operational pressures and keep workers on the job. Our government will do whatever it takes to stand up for Ontario workers and protect their jobs and paychecks as we face down this latest economic attack from President Donald Trump. Now more than ever, Team Canada needs to deliver on our shared commitment to build the most competitive and resilient economy in the G7 so we can attract investment, create jobs, and protect workers and their families for decades to come. First launched in August 2025, the Protect Ontario Financing Program provides up to $1 billion in financial support in the form of loans to Ontario-based businesses facing tariff-related working capital challenges, including payroll, lease payments, and utility payments. The program is part of Ontario's broader $30 billion tariff relief and support plan. There's the $150 million Ontario Together Trade Fund, which helps small and medium-sized enterprises affected by U.S. tariffs make near-term investments to reach new international and interprovincial markets, strengthen competitiveness, and reshore critical supply chains. There's the $40 million Trade Impacted Community Programs, which helps communities and local industries disproportionately impacted by U.S. tariffs strengthen their economic resilience by reducing reliance on U.S. markets and navigate new export partnerships. If you're a Mason and you live in Windsor, Sarnia, Vancouver, basically any town or city that is on or shares a border, you are almost certainly a community impacted disproportionately by the U.S. tariffs. And it might be worth looking into these things. Can we, within our communities, support or advocate to receive assistance for the community through these trade impacted community programs? Or the Ontario Made Manufacturing Investment Tax Credit, which offers tax relief for capital investment in buildings, machinery, and equipment. And again, I will be sharing the links for each of these things in the description to this video. Ontario.ca/page/trade impacted communities program guidelines, all of which with a hyphen. There's Stream 1 for community economic development and Stream 2 for transformational projects. Eligibility, municipal governments, economic development organizations, sector industry association, or business accelerator or incubator. But again, with these streams, we as Freemasons can support having our communities take part in these things. We can encourage them to take part in these things. We can write letters of support for the same. So you're going to find on all of these different channels me all the different links below. A brother calls you, hey, I'm really struggling right now. These tariffs are impacting my business. I don't think I can pay my dues, etc., etc. If your secretary knows if your secretary knows the resources that may be available to him at a provincial or national level, that's all the better. And I think it's worth knowing those things, along with other community resources. And at the same time, we as Freemasons can also take steps to support and help by buying local. If you know a brother has a business, take a few moments to purchase your products and services from him as opposed to others. Don't ask for a discount or anything like that. Just support him, Support has to be coming from the variety of different sources and resources. So just keep that in mind. Jinx, please hit like and subscribe. T094, yes, I agree. I saw that on X. It made me very sad. I hope everybody's okay. Because it's scary to think, it's scary to think of these things, to think how easy it is in life to, forget. You can be going through your life one day, everything's okay, and then the very next day, there's a flash flood, So I'm thinking about everybody, obviously. Thrice Illustrious, how's it going? Thank you for being here. Please hit like and subscribe. I think you already subscribed, but thank you for being here. We're going to give it a few more minutes. I'm going to wait to see if anybody else jumps on. And then I'm going to be talking about memory, which is a very important factor for Freemasons and something we as Freemasons should care about. Our entire ritual is done through memorization and memory work, as it should be. But you also need to remember things like brothers' names, especially if you're a secretary, important dates, etc., etc. So I think we need to keep that stuff in mind as well. But that's going to be coming up shortly. First, I want to give it a couple more minutes, maybe 10 minutes, see if anybody else jumps on to say hello. And we'll go from there. Because I want to make sure I get, a couple more people joining. This is from Queensland Brain Institute out of the University of Queensland. And you should pay attention because I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of questions about this stuff shortly. But for now, let's wait to see who joins. And please hit like and please hit subscribe. And Dylan, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Hungry Ghost, I don't disagree with you. But I think it's our responsibility as much as possible to try our best to recognize, despite the world being messed up, we do have options and things we can do to try to make the world, even in its messed up state, a little bit better. At least that's my hope. So fingers crossed we can do so. Disaster Piece Theater. I don't know what you mean precisely by small deposits. I think we should always in our life be making small deposits in our future. We should make good, healthy decisions like exercising every day, even if you just do it a little bit, is making a deposit into your future. I love pickles, Emily, of any sort. People who know me know well, one of my favorite things to eat is pickles. I love them. So, yeah, no, that's something I genuinely love. To everybody watching this also, please don't forget, find me on Medium, find me on Instagram, find me on all my different channels. I would really, really appreciate it. It helps me out big time. I'm trying to grow across different platforms and channels as much as possible. And I'm grateful for all the growth I have been experiencing. Even the fact that I'm monetized on YouTube is incredible, right? If you look at it, I love anything pickle related. Pickled carrots, actually, I think are really good. I think they're underrated. Like, I'm monetized, right? 2.6% of YouTube channels are monetized. That's it. So I'm one of 2.6% of people, which is incredible. So consistency does compound. So does time. Right? If you would it's consistency over time. But even just time itself, if you put $10 into a stock and don't touch it for 50 years, it'll more than likely be worth more when you take it out than when you put it in. Now, it won't be worth as much as if you every day or every year put $10 in or every month. But still, time tends to allow a lot of things to expand. The question is it allowing good things or not good things to expand? Because if you make bad decisions, that will also compound over time. For better or worse. Or I guess for worse if it's bad things. And Disaster Piece Theater, how is it going for you? How is your day treating you? I hope it's going well. Nice. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. Do you, Disaster Piece, do you follow me on any other channels outside of, or any other platforms outside of YouTube? Like, do you follow me on, let's say, Medium? And if not, would you like to follow me on, let's say, Medium, for example? Josie, I hope that that spell involves hitting the like and subscribe button. Um, I mean, I don't believe in spells, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I don't know if you're trying to cast a good spell on me or a bad spell on me. That's the problem. I don't quite know what you are spelling for me, but I appreciate being here nonetheless. I hope that you're doing well. Well, Disaster Piece, first, I'm grateful. I'm surprised you're not subscribed because that's a tongue twister. Surprised you're not, because I feel like I've seen you here before. I appreciate that. And I hope you consider checking me out on Medium as well. Um, Believe me, it helps. And I'm grateful. And we're slowly growing this channel. I want to get to 5,000 subs. Um, this year we're kind of stuck around 4,651. We had a period of really good growth and then it kind of died out again, but every subscriber counts and every subscriber helps. 5 minutes and we're going to start talking about memory from Queensland Brain Institute. Well, Emily makes me jealous because, like I said, pickled anything is really good. I just like the flavor of vinegar. So Mort, small wins are still wins. Believe me, small wins are still victories, and you definitely need to celebrate them. So I hope your wallet turns out well and turns out good. I have tried kombucha. It's pretty good. It's supposed to be really good for you, right? Like I'm not a health person, but from what I understand, it's supposed to be really good for you because it has like a lot of fermented, like I think ferments are really good. So I like kombucha. Again, the vinegar, right? I really like. So casting the nets for shrimp. I do like pickled onions, Mort. I love pickled onions. Again, vinegar, anything is good, is really good. So I've had pickled onions, believe me. Um, on like, especially I think pickled onions are really good on like a charcuterie board with meats and cheeses, pickled onions. Stuff is the bomb. That stuff is great. It's interesting. Um, I now have I have enough people watching me that my YouTube analytics shows me what's popular with different audiences, channels my audience watches, and videos my audience watches. It's interesting to see. Well, thank you, some dude, and thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good day. Also, my audience, it's interesting if people are curious. My top views come from United States with 42%, then Canada with 14%, then United Kingdom, then India, then Australia. So that's really fascinating. Um, More people from Australia than I would have thought. Pickled onions, I think they're good everywhere. I love pickled onions. The other thing I love is my memory. I'm grateful that I have, my memory is working. A lot of people struggle with it. To be a Freemason, memory is a major part of what it is to be a Freemason. We perform our rituals and our ceremonies. As a rule, we perform them from memory, and you're expected to do so. To advance in degree from entered apprentice to fellowcraft to master mason, and then to hold offices, you're also expected to be able to perform work from memory. There's also administrative memory, like if you're a master or a treasurer, a secretary, you need to remember the names of your brothers, you need to remember their ranks, the proper way to address them. There's the manual memory, if you want to use that term, of how to move in a lodge, how to walk around, the proper way to ambulate or preambulate, it's called. All of that stuff you need to be able to do. It's incredibly important. And so I think we as Freemasons should be paying attention to memory I did not know that, Robert. Cool. In a like in a very practical sense, okay, what is memory? How does it work? When we are memorizing Masonic ritual, what is actually happening physically within our brain? How is, like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What are some ways we can ensure that maintain we maintain our information? Generally speaking, just general group information, like like for example, the percentage of viewers that are male versus female, percentage of viewers that are subscribed versus not subscribed, percentage that have their notification bell turned on, whatever it might be. But it's interesting to pay attention to. So, what is memory? This is again from Queensland Brain Institute. I'm going to be asking some questions about this, so be prepared for that. Memory is the process of encoding, storing, and retrieving experiences and knowledge, and its many guises are even more important than you think. This is, again, what is memory? So, memory is the process of encoding, storing, and retrieving experiences and knowledge. It's hard to overstate the importance of memory. It is what makes us who we are. Some memories are the ones we are aware of. The coffee you enjoyed with a friend, that time as a child when the neighbor's dog scared you, knowing spiders have 8 legs, and the indisputable fact that the brain is amazing. These are known as explicit memories, ones we can consciously recall. But there are also implicit memories, which may be even more important. For example, when you talk, you're using motor memories to move your lips and tongue in a way that reproduces sounds you've learned. When you walk, you're using motor memories to coordinate your gait. If we didn't have memories, we'd just be a body unable to communicate or identify danger, and much like a newborn baby, oblivious to how to survive in the world around us. In short, memory is crucial in transforming us from helpless newborns into capable adults. There are different types of memories. Our memories are inextricably, linked with our identities, from our memory of childhood home or pet to remembering the address of a favorite restaurant. There are several different types of memories, some of which are fleeting and others that last a lifetime. Normally, when we talk about memory or remembering things, we are referring to explicit memory, which is consciously recalled. Explicit memories can be episodic, meaning they relate to experiences or episodes in your life, particular holiday, time you were first stung by a bee, or they are semantic, relating to facts or general knowledge, that the brain has about 90 billion neurons. Explicit memories are clearly affected by neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease. So there's no question that within Freemasonry, learning of ritual, learning of ceremonies is a type of explicit memory and a semantic memory relating to facts or general knowledge. However, there's other types of memory as well within there. Mort, that sounds very terrifying. I hope you talked to somebody. I'll keep my fingers crossed that you did and that you made it out of it, but it sounds very scary. Explicit memory is one type of long-term memory. The other kind of long-term memory is implicit or unconscious memory. These unconscious memories may be procedural, involving learning motor skills, learning how to ride a bike, how to type using a keyboard, for example. Implicit memories can also result from priming, which occurs when exposure to one stimulus influences your brain's response to another. For example, in word judging tasks, participants identify pairs of associated words such as bread, butter, faster than non-associated pairs such as bread, doctor. I think within Freemasonry, there's also obvious examples of procedural memory or implicit memory. For example, if you spent enough time in a Masonic lodge room, it's very likely that you will be able to, at a certain point, you unconsciously know the right way to move around, the right way to salute the worshipful master, the right place to sit, the right way to sit in a lodge. I think those can become primed or those can become implicit memories. Short-term memory enables the brain to remember a small amount of information for a short period of time. The shortest type of memory is known as working memory, which can last just seconds. This is what we use to hold information in our head while we engage in other cognitive processes. An example, remembering the numbers a new friend recites to you as you navigate your phone's menu system to add a contact. A person's working memory capability is one of the best predictors of general intelligence measured by standard psychological tests, which does not bode well for me because I tend to forget things right away. How memories are formed. The brain simmers with activity. Different groups of neurons, nerve cells, responsible for different thoughts or perceptions drift in and out of action. Memory is the reactivation of a specific group of neurons formed from persistent changes to the strength of connections between neurons. But what allows a specific combination of neurons to be reactivated over any other combination of neurons? The answer is synaptic plasticity. This term describes the persistent changes in strength of connections called synapses between brain cells. These connections can be made stronger or weaker depending on when and how often they have been activated in the past. Active connections tend to get stronger, whereas those that aren't used get weaker and can eventually disappear entirely. The more often you spend time in a Masonic lodge, the more often you engage in Masonic ritual, the more often you engage in Masonic work, the more likely you are to have stronger synaptic plasticity or stronger connections, stronger synapses between brain cells, right? Again, these connections can be made stronger or weaker depending on depending on when and how often they've been activated in the past. Active connections tend to get stronger, whereas those that aren't used get weaker and can eventually disappear entirely. This goes back to this idea I talked about before. We need to be practicing ritual regularly. It's very easy to get into this habit of thinking, I learned my ritual, I was expert at it at this one particular meeting, therefore it's all set. That Masonic ritual that you did excellent with, or that you aced at your previous Masonic meeting, at your proving, that information, those memories, the memorization of your Masonic ritual and your ceremonies, that is stored in your brain through different brain cells that are connected, right? Memory is the reactivation of a specific group of neurons. So when you're performing Masonic ritual, when you're performing Masonic ceremony, you are reactivating a specific group of neurons in your brain that store that information. The more you do the work, the more you practice, the stronger that group of neurons and the connections between those neurons get. By the same token, the less work you do, the less practice you engage in, the weaker they get. And over time, you may reach a point where you're no longer able, to have those connections, and you're not able to do the work as well as you once were. Which is why it's important to keep practicing your Masonic ritual and your Masonic ceremonies regularly. Even if you did it perfectly one time, that doesn't mean you'll do it perfectly every time unless you keep on practicing. Now, the more you practice, the more implicit that work may get, but it'll never be, 100% there. You need to practice regularly. Active connections you train through exercise and through practice get stronger, whereas those that aren't used get weaker and can eventually disappear entirely. That's also why I think our Masonic Grand Lodges are so regularly emphasizing the importance of practicing work and holding mentorship nights and holding degrees, even if you don't have a candidate exemplifying a degree. It's practice to keep those things stronger, and that I think is really important to remember. Have I been to Montreal? I have been to Montreal, but it's been a long time, in fairness. So I'd like to go back. A connection between two neurons becomes stronger when neuron A consistently activates neuron B, making it fire an action potential. And the connection gets weaker if neuron A consistently fails to make neuron B fire a spike. Lasting increases and decreases in synaptic strength are called long-term potentiation and long-term depression. Changing the strength of existing synapses or even adding new ones or removing old ones is critical to memory formation. But there is also evidence that another type of plasticity, not directly involving synapses, could be important for memory formation. In some parts of the adult brain, such as the important memory structure known as hippocampus, brand new neurons can be created in a process called neurogenesis. Studies in older mice have shown that by increasing neurogenesis in the hippocampus, memory can be improved. In human, exercise has been shown to increase the volume of the hippocampus, suggesting new neurons are being created and at the same time improve performance in memory tasks. This is one of the reasons I'm always suggesting that we as Freemasons should be encouraging health and activity in our lodges and in our membership. That can include starting your Masonic meetings with some light stretching, some light yoga, but also encouraging Masons to get out and walk, exercise, do push-ups. One of the reasons I talk so much about exercise on my channel here is because all the evidence shows exercise is more than likely helpful with creating stronger memory, which will make a better Masonic career. Hello, BHN. Thank you for being here. Different neuron ensembles for different memories. Memories occur when specific groups of neurons are reactivated. When you are remembering your Masonic ritual, you are reactivating specific groups of neurons, which you formed and created when you first learned and practiced your Masonic ritual. In the brain, any stimulus results in a particular pattern of neuron activity. Certain neurons become active in more or less a particular sequence. If you think of your cat, or your home, or your 5th birthday cake, different ensembles or groups of neurons become active. The theory is that strengthening or weakening synapses makes particular patterns of neuronal activity more or less likely to occur. As a 5-year-old, if given the word house, you might have imagined a drawing of a house. As an adult, upon hearing the same word, you may well picture your own house, a different response for the same input. This is because your experience and memories have changed, and connections between neurons making the old house ensemble less likely to occur than the new house ensemble. In other words, recalling a memory involves reactivating a particular group of neurons. The idea is that by previously altering the strengths of a particular synaptic connection, synaptic plasticity makes this possible. And I've talked about this within Freemasonry a little bit as well, in the sense that your experiences with Freemasonry will change the way you remember things and how you remember things. So when you first join Freemasonry as an entered apprentice and you're given you're given a ritual book to memorize the proving for the first degree, and then you visit your your mentorship nights, and you visit with another Mason and you learn about the work done in those, or how to do the work. When you're asked to think about your obligation or to recite your obligation, the neurons that will activate in your brain to consider that obligation or to remember that obligation, it'll most likely be you remembering either your book that you used or time spent with your mentor. 50 years in, when you're asked to recite or remember the Masonic obligation, you may have a different set of neural pathways. You may remember the first time you performed it in lodge, or the time another brother performed it and you heard it and it made you rethink about it or reconsider it, right? The place that your Masonic ritual or the neurons and the connections between the neurons that store your Masonic ritual will change over time. We need to be aware of the changes that are happening over time. It'll help us better understand it. Calgary, please hit like and subscribe. Nam, some Masons believe in evolution, some in creationism. I can assure you, though, I believe in evolution. Memories are stored by changing the connection between neurons. A 5-year-old child will activate a certain group of neurons, whereas adults will activate a different ensemble with the same stimulus. Synaptic plasticity, driven by repeated experience, can change the connection strengths between neurons. This is how there can be different neural responses to the same input. One of the reasons I'm always asking people when they're learning their Masonic ritual and studying their Masonic ritual, one thing I'll always ask them is, they'll perform a piece of work or they'll practice a piece of work, and I'll always ask them, what does that mean to you? When you read that section of the Masonic ritual or that section of the Masonic ceremony for memorization purposes, what does it mean to you? The reason I do that is because I'm trying to strengthen the neural assemblies or the synaptic plasticity that allows them to access that. Because if they have some way of connecting the words, and if they have some way of connecting the ceremony to, like if they know what it means to them, if they can understand it in a personal level, they're more likely to be able to access those neural pathways and those synaptic pathways when necessary. Sleep is another important factor for memory storage. During sleep, the hippocampus and neocortex take part in a carefully choreographed dialogue in which the hippocampus replays recent events. The same hippocampal neurons activate during an experience become activated again during slow wave sleep over and over in a time compressed manner, helping to update the neocortex as to what needs to be stored. This replay only occurs during sleep, so if you're skimping on sleep, you aren't letting your brain consolidate memories. Believe me, I get that I am hypocritical when it comes to this, because very often I do 24-hour live streams where I get 3 or 4 hours of sleep in like a 24-hour period. Do what I say, not what I do, especially if you're first studying Masonic ritual. Take the time to learn. Take the time to sleep, I should say. You're going to need to get enough sleep if you want to be able to remember things well, including your Masonic ritual. Where does Masonic ritual and ceremony live? It lives in your mind. It lives in your brain. It lives in the sympathetic pathways that connect neurons in your brain. But more generally, it lives and is stored in different parts of your brain, right? Not every part of your brain is responsible for memory or has those neural pathways that store the memories or activate when trying to remember something. Memories aren't stored in just one part of the brain. Different types of memory are stored across different interconnected brain regions. For explicit memories, which are about events that happen to you, episodic, as well as general facts and information, semantic, there are 3 important areas of the brain: the hippocampus, the neocortex, and the amygdala, or amygdala. Implicit memories, such as motor memories, rely on the basal ganglia and cerebellum. Short-term working memory relies most heavily on the prefrontal cortex. So there are 3 areas in the brain involved in explicit memory, which Masonic ritual and ceremony is a type of explicit memory. The hippocampus, the neocortex, and the amygdala, I can pronounce things. The hippocampus, located in the brain's temporal lobe, is where episodic memories are formed and indexed for later access. Episodic memories are autobiographical memories from specific events in our lives, like the coffee we had with a friend last week. Interesting little story. In 1953, a patient named Henry Molaison had his hippocampus surgically removed during an operation in the United States to treat his epilepsy. His epilepsy was cured, and Molaison lived a further 55 healthy years. However, after the surgery, he was only able to perform episodic memories that lasted a matter of minutes. He was completely unable to permanently store new information. As a result, Molaison's memory became mostly limited to events that occurred years before his surgery in the distant past. He was, however, still able to improve his performance on various motor tasks, even though he had no memory of ever encountering or practicing them. This indicated that although the hippocampus is crucial for laying down memories, it is not the site of permanent memory storage and isn't needed for motor memories. Motor memories would also be how to walk in a Masonic lodge, how to move in a Masonic lodge, how to preambulate. You're always moving clockwise, for example, at least an emulation ritual. How to sit appropriately in a Masonic lodge meeting, with your feet on the floor, not crossing legs. These are little things, but the indication is those memories, those implicit motor memories, isn't tied to the hippocampus. Those memories are stored in a different section, more than likely. Yes, muscle memory. The study of Henry Molaison was revolutionary because it showed that multiple types of memory existed. We now know that rather relying on the hippocampus, implicit motor learning occurs in other brain areas, the basal ganglia and the cerebellum. So for example, if you are remembering your favorite Masonic meeting, or let's say you're remembering a type of meal that you had at a specific Masonic event, or like my favorite meal I've ever had at a Masonic meeting, which was in Rio de Janeiro. The taste, that meal, the memory of that meal is stored in the hippocampus area of my brain, in the temporal lobe. However, when I walk or wheel into a Masonic lodge and I immediately know to travel in a clockwise direction when preambulating the lodge, that memory, that motor memory, is stored in a different area of the brain altogether. The interesting thing, though, is, if you consider your Masonic ritual and ceremonies and the words that you need to use when performing your Masonic ritual, it's very likely that that is stored in the hippocampus based on my understanding of it, because those are episodic memories. To remember on Tuesday the words and phrases needed for a Masonic lodge meeting to open or close, I must first have the episodic memory necessary to remember Monday when I was practicing that ritual and reading it for the first time, let's say. So that's an episodic memory. However, I do wonder, the way I speak, how to speak, moving my mouth, my tongue in a certain order to produce certain sounds, that is a type of motor memory. So I wonder if there might be some level of, especially if, for example, I repeat the words over and over and over and over again, if there may be some motor memory functions in the repetition of words, again, through the basal ganglia and cerebellum. Oh, Robert, you're making me jealous. So the neocortex is the largest part of the cerebellum cortex, the sheet of neural tissue that forms the outside surface of the brain, distinctive in higher mammals for its wrinkly appearance. In humans, the neocortex is involved with higher functions such as sensory perception, generation of motor commands, spatial reasoning, and language. Over time, information from certain memories that are temporarily stored in the hippocampus can be transferred to the neocortex as general knowledge. Things like knowing that coffee provides a pick-me-up, Researchers think that this transfer from hippocampus to neocortex happens as we sleep. So again, you are learning your Masonic ritual and your Masonic ceremony. At first, that learning is stored in the hippocampus region of your brain. It's conscience. If I want to perform a Masonic ceremony, like the opening or closing, I, at first, when I'm learning it, need to access information that is stored in the hippocampus, right? This is what I say, this is when I say it. Now, over time, hopefully, if I practice enough, if I repeat the ritual and the ceremonies enough, if I put a sufficient amount of repetition and work into my my Masonic ritual and mentorship, it's possible that that knowledge, that those memories from the hippocampus will end up being transferred to the neocortex and become, for lack of a better term, unconscious or general knowledge. So when I'm tired, I don't need to remember in a conscious level, coffee provides a pick-me-up. I just unconsciously know this to be the case as a bit of general knowledge, and I go and get a cup of coffee. You know, when I first went to the Masonic Lodge, I needed to think to myself and remember, oh, I walk clockwise around the lodge again, or I ambulate in a clockwise manner. It was knowledge and memory stored in my hippocampus region of the brain. But eventually, over time and doing it repeatedly, that knowledge transferred from my hippocampus to the neocortex. And now I do it without thinking about it. But it's very likely that that transfer happened for a few different reasons, but transferred very much when I was sleeping. But the stronger the memory got in my hippocampus, the better I think the transfer would be. So the more I practice, I put into practice and study, and the more I was able to think about things in my nature. Like, so example, when people would ask me, what does Masonic ritual mean to you? Why do you think we always walk around the lodge in a clockwise manner? Why do you think we use this word? What does that word mean to you? It wasn't just about memorizing the work. It was about memorizing it and thinking about it and putting it into context in ways I could understand. I'm sure that that strengthened very much the knowledge and the memories in my neocortex, which probably then, while I was sleeping, made it easier to go from my hippocampus to my neocortex. So a good pathway to think about this, Austin, you need to calm down a lot. A good way to think about this would be, I become a Freemason. I'm given a ritual book to learn about my ritual, and I go to mentorship nights or mentorship sessions to learn the ritual from other experienced Masons. At first, everything I learn and all of the memories, everything I learn about my Masonic ritual and ceremony is being stored in neural pathways and sympathetic pathways in the hippocampus portion of my brain. And when I need to access it as working memory to, for example, practice or prove my degree, I'm accessing it from the hippocampus region of the brain. And the more I practice, the more work I put in, the more regularly I attend lodge, the stronger the neural pathways within the hippocampus becomes, the stronger and the better the memories become. Over time, if I am taking care of myself, if I'm getting enough sleep, exercising, it's very likely that that knowledge and that information and those memories will be transferred from the hippocampus to the neocortex. At that point, in some ways, the knowledge will become more unconscious and the memories will become more unconscious. Instead of needing to actively remember when I walk into the lodge, I need to move in a clockwise manner. The neocortex takes over and I remember in an unconscious manner. Modern welfare, Austin, stop arguing in the chat and let me know if what I'm saying makes sense to you. There's one more level in the brain, the amygdala, or amygdala, I should say. The amygdala is an almond-shaped structure in the brain's temporal lobe. It attaches emotional significance to memories. This is particularly important because strong emotional memories, those associated with shame, joy, love, or grief, are difficult to forget. The permanence of these memories suggests that interaction between the amygdala, hippocampus, and neocortex are crucial to determining the stability of the memory. That is, how effectively it is retained over time. There are additional aspects to the amygdala's involvement in memory. The amygdala doesn't just modify the strength and emotional content of memories, it also plays a key role in forming new memories, specifically related to fear. Fearful memories are able to be formed after only a few repetitions. This makes fear learning a popular way to investigate the mechanisms of memory formation, consolidation, and recall. Understanding how the amygdala processes fear is important because its relevance to post-traumatic stress, which affects many of our veterans as well as police, paramedics, and others exposed to trauma. Anxiety in learning situations is also likely to involve the amygdala and may lead to avoidance of particularly challenging or stressful tasks. I'd say the lesson there is twofold. First, if you have somebody joining your Masonic lodge who maybe is a police officer, a soldier, someone who is struggling with PTSD, they may have more difficulty learning or memorizing things because of the stress caused by the PTSD. I would say in general, a good piece of advice to remember is if Masons have a fond memory of their initiation, a fond memory of their mentorship, or have fond feelings of those things, the memories are more likely to be stronger. And I think that's worth keeping in mind. And then there is implicit memory, right? Which is not explicit, it's implicit. So it's not your Masonic ritual and ceremonies, right? It's more the things that you do unconsciously or develop over time. I think things can move from explicit to implicit. The basal ganglia and the cerebellum. The basal ganglia are structures lying deep within the brain that are involved in a wide range of processes such as emotion, reward processing, habit formation, movement, and learning. They are particularly involved in coordinating sequences of motor activity as would be needed when playing a musical instrument, dancing, or playing basketball, or when preambulated or moving properly around a Masonic lodge. The basal ganglia are the region most affected by Parkinson's disease. This is evidenced in the impaired movements of Parkinson's patients. The cerebellum, a separate structure located at the rear of the base of the brain, is most important in fine motor control, the type that allows us to use chopsticks or press the piano key a fraction more softly. A well-studied example of cerebellar motor learning is the vestibulo-ocular reflex, which lets us maintain our gaze on a location as we rotate our heads. I'm looking at the camera right now, still looking at the camera even as I move my heads. That is called vestibular-ocular reflex. Working memory. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the neocortex that sits at the very front of the brain. It is the most recent addition to the mammalian brain and is involved in many complex cognitive functions. Human neuroimaging studies using magnetic resonance imaging machines show that when people perform tasks requiring them to hold information in their short-term memory, such as the location of a flashlight, the prefrontal cortex becomes active. There also seems to be a functional separation between left and right sides of the PFC, prefrontal cortex. The left is more involved in verbal working memory, while the right is more active in spatial working memory, such as remembering where the flash of light occurred. If you're going into a Masonic Lodge meeting and you need to remember the names, you need to remember the name of a brother you need to introduce as, let's say, the Master of Ceremonies, that's an example of working memory, which relies most heavily on the prefrontal cortex. Memory and age. As we age, our ability to learn and remember changes. Due, for example, to infantile amnesia, most of us can't remember anything about being a toddler. We don't know why. The memories might still be there, but not easily accessible. Or it could be that the circuits holding these earliest memories are overwritten when new brain cells are produced and integrated. Around adolescence, the prefrontal cortex, which controls planning, decision-making, and working memory, develops significantly. Our ability to plan for the future improves as we can process more information when deciding between different options. Our ability to remember new information through the Queensland Brain Institute, Modern Welfare, University of Queensland. I discovered this stuff a couple days ago, and I've been looking at it. It seems to fit into what I've learned about memory and also my personal Masonic experiences as well. Our ability to remember new information peaks in our 20s and then starts to decline noticeably from our 50s or 60s. Because the hippocampus is one brain region that continues producing new neurons into adulthood, it plays an important role in memory and learning. The section called the dentate gyrus is where the new neurons are created. Many are produced during childhood, but the activity in the dentate gyrus slows as we age. The reason for memory decline isn't known, but may involve this decreased rate of neurogenesis. And neurogenesis, again, is the process by which new neurons are formed in the brain. Dementia, which is experienced by 10% of people older than 65, occurs when abnormal proteins accumulate inside and around neurons. These proteins are thought to affect our memories by killing the synapses and ultimately the neurons that hold memories together. So as I've talked about before, right, we're going to talk about this in a second, a key to slowing decline may lie in exercising not only the brain, but also the body, right? There's no escaping it. Cognitive function declines with age, but it's not all bad news. An important key to slowing the decline may lie in not only the brain, but the body. There's a reason why I'm always encouraging Masons to exercise. There's many reasons, but one of them is it might help with your memory. QBI's Queensland Brain Institute's Professor Perry Bartlett was one of the first people to discover that the adult brain contains stem cells capable of making new neurons, a process called neurogenesis. As the brain ages, these stem cells lose their ability to produce new neurons, causing cognitive function to decline. Groundbreaking research by Professor Bartlett and Dr. Daniel Blackmore recently identified that exercise is able to increase production of new brain cells and improve learning and memory. They are now heading up a clinical trial monitoring 300 people aged 65 and older to identify the right amount, intensity, and type of exercise that leads to cognitive improvement in the aging brain. I'm going to be checking out the results of that study. I can promise you that. I've talked about studies in the past that show the value of regular memorization work to improve both physical and mental health over long periods of time and into adulthood and into being, elderly. In the past, I think it's worth exploring again. What makes memories stronger? Emotional memories. One thing that helps make a memory robust is if it has strong emotional content. Probably still remember your first kiss, where you were when you found out that a close family member has passed away. This happens because the amygdala, which brain imaging studies have shown is activated by emotional events. The amygdala boosts memory encoding by enhancing attention and perception and can help memory retention by triggering the release of stress hormones. If you have a more emotional attachment to Freemasonry, you're more than likely going to have stronger memories of it. A good analogy for memory formation is the way foot traffic creates a path along a stretch of grass. The more a patch of grass is trampled as people pass along it, the clearer the path becomes and the easier it is to follow. It's as if a memory of all the walking has been created. The same thing happens in the brain. The more a neural pathway is activated, the stronger the synaptic connections along the way become. Then, when a thought enters our head, say a tropical beach, we recall a related experience or knowledge, such as putting on sunscreen and the feel of sand, as our minds funnel our thoughts along well-established neural pathways. Another way to put it is, the first time you read your Masonic ritual and practice it, it's like the first time you walk along a field of grass. A pathway will kind of appear, but it will be not particularly, like you're not going to see it that well because it's the first time you've walked that direction. But every time, or that path, but every time you practice, every time you read that Masonic ritual, it's like you're re-walking or re-traversing the same pathway over and over and over again until eventually it becomes very easy to follow. And when you're asked to perform a Masonic ritual, you're able to do so relatively easily. Because you've practiced it over and over again, the neural pathway is activated and easy to find. Which is why, for example, I can walk into a Masonic lodge, I can be asked to be the senior warden, and I can know immediately the work I need to do because I've done it so many times and practiced it so many times. How are memories accessed? Hello, Brandon. Thank you for being here. A memory of the coffee you had with a friend last week, for example, could include the taste and smell of the coffee, the cafe's interior design, and the sound of an ambulance siren as it drove past, or the topics of conversation you discussed. These components of your experience would have activated various parts of your neocortex, but the episode itself would initially be stored in the hippocampus. Over time, this memory is consolidated with its long-term storage thought to be distributed in different parts of the neocortex. According to one popular theory, the hippocampus is critical, serving as a memory index. To use an analogy, when functioning well, memory is like a digital database or an old school style office filing cabinet. Something triggers a search of the database and we retrieve and recall the information. When your friend mentions how much she likes the cafe's stylish interior, you picture the inside of the cafe, making your visual cortex, the part of the brain that receives and processes sensory nerve impulses from the eyes, become active in a similar pattern to when you saw the cafe firsthand. Because of the sympathetic plasticity and strengthened connections, the visual seed is enough to access the cafe with friends scene in the hippocampus's index. To actually recall the memory, the hippocampus then directs neuronal traffic, back to the appropriate circuits of the neocortex, reactivating the sound of the ambulance, the taste of the coffee, the topics of conversation, and any other components of the cafe with friends memory. It could be modern welfare. It wouldn't shock me. Getting your home blown up is terrible and it makes me very sad. I do respect him for saying that, Tyler. That's, I would be furious that he could still say, he respects all people, all faiths. I think is something, that indicates he is a very good person and a good human being. Probably a better person than I am, that's for sure. Because I agree. It is a terrible thing to happen to a person and to a human being. And Brandon, how's it going? Thank you as always for being here. I hope you're doing well. Hold on just one second. So, I've talked about this before um, as well. Let me just pull this up if I could. Freemasonry, right? We have, the beautiful thing about Freemasonry is Freemasonry is practiced, the ritual, the ceremonies, the work in, you know, a multitude of languages around the world. And I think we as Freemasons should consider how we can communicate with brethren and how we can appreciate different languages and the the way Freemasonry is practiced in different languages. Um, Speaking multiple languages also affects and is connected to memory, the ability to quote unquote remember language, right? What's their secret for people who speak multiple language? Is their ability with languages simply due to persistence? Do their brains work differently to give them an advantage in this area? Emil Krebs, a 19th century German polyglot, who was reportedly able to speak and write 68 different languages. A postmortem study of his brain found anatomical differences in Broca's region, an area of the frontal lobe important for speech production. Researchers were unable to determine, however, whether the structure of his brain was unique from birth or resulted from his language learning. Other research supports the idea that brain anatomy does contribute in some way to language learning. A study by Northwestern University found that having a larger brain region known as the Herschel's gyrus, known to be involved in processing pitch, was associated with more success in learning foreign pitch patterns. Um, it could also be worth dusting off those old French textbooks from high school. Research suggests bilingualism contributes generally to the maintenance of a healthy brain. Neuroplastic brain changes, including increased gray matter density, have been found in people with skills in more than one language, from children to young adults to the elderly. Such changes even occur with short term learning. At least one review has found that lifelong bilingualism is associated with an average delay in the onset of dementia. What I would say, and the reason I bring that up is, if you are a Freemason, even if you aren't interested in learning multiple languages for like day-to-day use, it might be worth learning your Masonic ritual and your Masonic ceremony in multiple languages. Again, all the evidence shows that doing so contributes to the reduction, um, um, a delay or a reduction in the onset of dementia. That's another reason why I try to encourage Masons to learn their Masonic language to learn Masonic ritual and ceremony in more than one language. Could be incredibly helpful. So I keep that in mind as well. Tyler, please like and subscribe. Modern welfare, then you're a better man than I, because I really struggle to learn multiple languages. So I keep trying to learn it and I keep failing. So it's one of those do as I say, not as I do situations. However, modern welfare, I did write about the value of Freemasonry and multiple languages on Medium. Out of curiosity, do you follow me on Medium by any chance? Have you ever seen any of my writings on Medium? And if not, I hope you'll do so. I mean, Freemasonry's premise is that it's worth spending time with other people. Now, Solomon's Temple is a very important figure in Freemasonry, or very important symbol in Freemasonry. There's no doubt about that. But that's not to say the same thing as it is a, premise of Freemasonry. But it's an important symbol within Freemasonry, no doubt. What are you talking about, Austin? I think French is an awesome language, one of the greatest languages in the world. As is English, as is Spanish. I think the more languages we have in the world, the better the world is. Um, and the preservation of such is incredibly important. Tyler, Austin, I am the problem. Do you guys follow me on Medium, on other channels? If not, Instagram. If not, I hope you'll do so. So I hope that my discussion on memory was valuable. Ultimately, Freemasonry, what people need to remember. Thank you. Oh, yes, I did, Austin. That's right. And thank you. I appreciate that. Freemasonry, our Masonic ritual, at the end of the day, lives in one place. It lives in our minds. Specifically, it lives in the neural pathways formed by our minds when memorizing our ritual and our ceremonies and our work. And that is something I'm grateful for, right? The Freemasonry is in here first, and then it's in the world second. Knowing how, where, and why within our brain, within our minds, the memory of ritual and ceremonies and Freemasonry is stored, how to strengthen those connections so we can access it easier over a Masonic career, I think is very valuable. It gives us a more concrete understanding. So people understand maybe in people understand in a general sense practicing things is important for memory. However, they don't really understand why. Like what happens when you practice? Why is it that when you practice, things get easier to remember, things get easier to do? And when you don't understand the why, it can be hard to really internalize the lessons. So I don't think it's enough to just say to Masons, thank you, Modern Welfare, I'm grateful. It's important to tell Masons, not just you need to practice your ritual to help you remember. I think it's better to tell Masons, practicing your ritual will help strengthen the formations and pathways in one's brain, in one's neurons, that will allow you to access it at a later time. It will also help those memories move from explicit memories to part of the more implicit or unconscious memories that you're able to access without always thinking about it. And to tell them, your Masonic ritual is stored here. It's stored in the hippocampus, right? Or we're working hard to have it stored in the neocortex. Or the reason it's important to try to put on enjoyable, fun Masonic activities is because that will create a fond set of emotions that will help the memories be better stored. So basically, I would tell new Masons when they're first joining, right now, as you practice and as you study, your hippocampus is presently storing the information and the ritual. But over time, and if you continue to work, those memories will eventually move to the neocortex. That stuff is very valuable and very important. So thank you, Modern Welfare. It's also why we should encourage our Masonic lodges and Masonic brethren to exercise regularly, to learn Masonic ritual in multiple languages, right? It gives a more concrete picture of what is precisely happening. It's why we need to practice regularly. It's like walking through grass. The more times you practice your ritual, the more times you walk through grass, the more clear the path becomes. The more times you practice your ritual, the stronger the memory becomes. Yes, we do. I am the problem. We recognize Prince Hall Masonry here in Ontario, and that's something I'm grateful for. And thank you, Modern Welfare. And if you get the chance, you want to leave some comments, I'd be much obliged. Oh, Tyler, you're still making me jealous. I'm very hungry. I had a very light breakfast, so I need to get more food. I'm sure diet has an effect on memory as well. I would like to learn French, but I've never like succeeded thus far. Um, if Canada turns to China instead of negotiating, really, Austin? All right, I'm gonna put you. I mean, you're just being an idiot at this point. No, I mean, I don't want to get invaded, especially as I'm on the front lines. I don't think anybody's planning on invading, but you're being a moron. And you're being butthurt. So you're being kind of childish as well. Good evening. What's the matter? Hello, LM. Nothing's the matter. We're talking about, well, I was talking about memory. Again, through the Queensland Brain Institute. I was just looking something up quickly. But I think I touched the main points I wanted to get to. Good study habits that maximize learning is something I wanted to mention as well. Although I've talked about this before, if you want to learn your Masonic ritual and your Masonic ceremonies, cramming rarely works. It leads to an elevation of stress and a lack of sleep. And we've talked about this before. Lack of sleep helps. Lack of sleep means memories have a harder time moving, likely from the hippocampus to the neocortex. It also increases stress. Stress impairs memory retrieval, hampers the updating of memories in light of new information, and induces, a flexible cognitive learning to rigid habit-like behavior. So you stop learning what the words and what your ritual and ceremony actually means. Rather, you start to learn the words for the word's sake without cognition as to what those words actually mean. Um, Time management is key. If you need to learn a new piece of Masonic work or ritual, give yourself sufficient time to learn it. Don't cram last minute. That stuff will not be helpful either. Um, Avoid distractions. According to the Queensberry Institute, the brain learns using two methods: declarative memory and habit learning. Declarative memory, which depends on a brain region known as medial temporal lobes, deals with learning active facts that can be recalled. An example is memorizing a phone number that you can then recall. So, for example, when you are first learning your Masonic ritual and ceremonies, and you're told, okay, this is the question that you're going to be given, this is the answer you are to give. Um, that is declarative memory. It depends on the brain region known as the medial temporal lobe, dealing with active facts that can be recalled. Habit learning, on the other hand, relies on an area of the brain called the striatum. If we use the phone number analogy, it's like learning the phone number by punching it in 1,000 times. You may not be able to recall the number itself, but you can go to the phone and punch the number exactly. A research study demonstrated that these two methods of learning are in constant competition, but that habit learning takes precedence when a person is distracted. Now, both habit learning and declarative memory allows you to recall knowledge. So technically, you will do fine if you have a few multi-choice questions. However, declarative memory is what allows you to flexibly apply the knowledge you have gained, for instance, in an essay. So it is a good idea to keep smartphones, TV, and any other distractions at bay while you are studying. So, learning the proper answers to give during your proving ceremony when you're moving from the first to the second degree or the second to third degree. That is declarative memory that relies on the medial temporal lobe of the brain when learning, he's learning an active fact and trying to recall it. Learning the proper way to move in a Masonic lodge is a type of habit learning, which relies on a type of brain called the striatum. You walk the same way around a Masonic lodge 100 times, 1,000 times, it's going to become a habit. You learn how to properly punch in the code to your security system at your Masonic building, it becomes a habit as well. Um, Pioneering work by Godin and Baddeley suggested that environment context influences cognitive processing. That means if you are routinely studying in the exact same place, you are not training yourself to remember information when thrown into an exam situation or when you are under extreme pressure. Instead, try studying in a wide variety of contexts. Take time to explain the concepts you learned to your parents, younger siblings, or friends. That is again why when somebody is learning their Masonic ritual or ceremony, I don't just ask them to learn and remember the words. I ask them what those words mean to them. I ask them to explain what they think about within the context. Um, while you're helping prepare dinner or taking a walk in the park. You know, it's interesting that one suggestion I usually give to Masons when they're first learning their Masonic ritual is study anytime, but especially practice it and study it in your Masonic lodge room or your meeting place because you'll have an easier time accessing it in that same space because your mind creates a pathway or a memory associating the space you're in with your with those words and that ritual and that ceremony. And that is something I agree with as a general rule. However, I can see the value in trying to learn your ritual in a variety of locations. That way, if for whatever reason, let's say your Masonic building has a situation and you need to move somewhere else for a meeting, you're not going to get flustered by being in a different space, for example. So I think that is something worth remembering as well. 5 tips for good study habits to help you learn your Masonic ritual and ceremonies. Manage your time wisely so you stay on top of your ritual work or your Masonic learning. Practice mindfulness and meditation to reduce stress. There's a reason I'm always suggesting we start our Masonic Lodge meetings with mindfulness exercises or meditative exercises. Ditch smartphones at night to make sure you get good sleep. Eliminate distractions. And I would say when you're first starting to learn your Masonic ritual, learn it in your lodge room. It will help strengthen those neural pathways that connect the space to the words and help you remember easier when you're in that space. Because you're not going to need your Masonic ritual very often in spaces outside of your Masonic lodge room, especially when you start. But eventually, as you travel, as you move around, it's important to keep in mind there are multiple. You may end up finding different places and locations where you might need additional work or might need to pull out your Masonic ritual. I am going to, however, take a moment to run to the washroom because I really got to go. I'll be back in a moment. Thank you all. Oops, and I'm back. All right, so that was my discussion points today. I really liked those discussion points, actually. I think they were really, not to toot my own horn, but I think they were very valuable. So, yeah, we're going to wait. We're going to hang out. We're going to wait to see who joins. Now we're back to this hanging out and chatting about whatever section. So let's wait to see who finds us. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, and any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, let me know. Super chats, comments, believe me, all that stuff helps out big time. I don't know. I mean, I think we've had a lot of advancements. Anybody here not found me on social media? Sorry, not follow me on Medium, Instagram, Patreon. If not, please do so. As always, it's very important and helps me turn my passion for Freemasonry into profession. So for the time being, though, let's just wait to see who joins. If I could actually find some articles I'm looking at reading. Oh, there it is. And any thoughts you have on Freemason, let me know. We'll give it some time. We'll see who finds us. Don't forget tonight at 8, I'll be back on my personal YouTube channel, which I look forward to. And yeah, let's give it some time. Let's see who joins. And while we're waiting, I'm going to hang out on X. Follow me there as well. I'm starting to see some growth on X, which I'm really happy about. Instagram as well. I'm going to try to do more live streams on Instagram also. We shall see. The problem with doing live streams on Instagram is I can't mobile stream yet. I need to get 1,000 followers. So we're working on it, though. Well, I wouldn't blame AI data centers on the decline in Freemasonry because the decline in Freemasonry started really in the 60s and has been going consistently since then. So I definitely think you can blame AI data centers. I mean, the problem with saying like the future of Freemasonry, right? It's Freemasonry is not a single thing. So um, the future of Freemasonry in Ontario will look different than the future of Freemasonry in the Philippines. Will look different than the future of Freemasonry in South America. Will look different than the future of regular versus irregular versus clandestine lodges. I do think in general, though, as we struggle economically, as people feel like they're struggling economically, that is going to create a lot of challenges for the future of Freemasonry. And to the extent that AI centers help encourage people to spend more time at home, more time on the internet, less time face to face, that is going to be a challenge. Hello, Jest. Thank you for being here. Please hit like and let me know how you're doing. And any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, please let me know. I'm just hanging out chatting. There's going to be a lot of questions. A lot of my poll questions would be really cool. we're just going to give it some time, wait to see who joins, jump in the chat. I'm just hanging out, chatting, waiting to see who wants to hang out. Don't forget, 8 p.m. tonight on my personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/@CameronAdamson. We're going to be watching a movie on Tubi and hanging out. Oops. So I'm just going to give it some time, see who jumps on to say hello. And thank you, as always, everybody who has been here so far. I wonder if I'm missing anybody. Top messages. All messages. Give it some more time. Nobody else jumps on. I'll probably end this stream soon, but I don't want to end it quite yet, in case we have some more people jumping on to say hello. I will be back on tonight at 1 a.m. as well. But let's give it a couple minutes and let's see if anybody can find me. Sometimes kind of got to go through the lower periods. And I hope you guys are enjoying the weather as much as I am. It's pretty beautiful. So after a summer of miserable heat, I am not complaining about this weather at all, believe me. And welcome, jump in the chat, say hello. Mark your calendars for tonight at 8 p.m. when I'll be on my other channel, which I'm really hoping to try to grow. youtube.com/@CameronAdamson. I do not like the heat, modern welfare, so that's you and I are very different in that sense. But thank you for being here nonetheless. I hope you're doing well. And hit that like button. Anybody watching this, I know you already have modern welfare. I'm not one who likes the heat, put it that way. I've never been a fan of too much heat. Where are you from, modern welfare? I forget if I asked you that before, if I forgot to. Where are you from? And thank you for being here. Modern, I feel like the world is trying to smother me with a pillow when I step out on a hot sunny day, so or hot muggy day. Oh, maybe you mentioned that before. I'm from Ontario as well. We probably did mention that before and I forgot, to which I very much apologize. All right, I think I'm going to end this stream. Looks like we had a good turnout at the start. Looks like it's dropped off. I hope you guys are paying attention because you're going to see a lot of questions about you're going to see a lot of questions about um, memory and masonry and all the rest of it on my community page. So find it there. Thank you all for being here. As always, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you to everybody who follow me on Medium. We're slowly growing that channel as well. So everybody have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you all soon.